The Browning Model 1910, let's check it out. John Moses Browning was a genius, and a lot of his designs are pretty timeless. This is one that was ahead of its time during its day, and this is the Browning Model 1910. It's in 380 ACP. It also came in 32 ACP. Now, he had offered this to Colt, and they refused, and he went to FN, and they started designing not only the Model 1910 for Browning, but also the FN model. Now, these were only available in Europe until 1953, and then they began to import them into the United States. But then the 1968 Gun Control Act restricted importation of these handguns because of its small size. But the astounding part of the Model 1910 was it was instrumental in starting World War I. The FN Model 1910 was used to assassinate Archduke Ferdinand of Austria and his wife, which set off a chain of events. This was also used to assassinate the president of France, Paul Demoure, and also Huey Long in Louisiana, who was the governor. This is an infamous gun, but yet overall it was used for a lot of good purposes. And it's really just a piece of history. Now, I picked this up at a local gun show from one of my favorite guys, Norm, and he always has some of the coolest little firearms. And I was really happy to pick up the Model 1910. All right, guys, the Browning Model 1910, made from 1910 to 1983. It was a very popular handgun design used by police and military all over the world. In fact, extensively during World War I. This is really a unique design and really a pioneer, which John Browning was known for that. One of the things you'll notice about this handgun is how it tapers up, and really just a shroud around the end of the barrel. And that's because this is one of the first handguns that use the recoil spring with the barrel, like you see with your PPK or your Makarov. It's a blowback design. It's all steel frame. And really this was offered to Colt, really to replace their Model 1903, which is very popular. And it was a smaller handgun. But Colt rejected it. He went to FN and they produced it. And they also produced their own version of the 1910 under the FN logo. So first thing, let's check our 6-round magazine for 380 ACP. They did make this in 32 ACP with a 7-round mag capacity. Then we'll check the chamber and the gun's empty. One thing you'll notice is how short the slide comes back. It's a very short throw. And that's really because the 380 ACP is so small. That's why they call it 9mm Kurz for short in Europe. But all steel frame, but yet super thin. This was definitely a pocket pistol. And the magazines, they're fairly hard to come by. They're pretty expensive. I think Triple K was making them at one point, but they're all steel and they're pretty sturdy. And so again, that little Hill style magazine, you'll notice that it comes out at the back. And so you got to be careful not to have your hand too close to get that magazine in and out. Now this has 3 safeties. First is the grip safety, and we've seen that on a lot of the earlier designs. So this has to be depressed for the gun to fire, but it's really close to the frame. You almost don't notice it. And really when you grab it, you have to mean and squeeze that grip. And that gives it a really good disengagement with the safety. Secondly, we have our standard frame safety, and it just goes up into the slide just like in this little notch. Now there is another notch, and this is just to hold the slide back on an empty chamber. And one of the problems is with this handgun, it's not made to stay open on that last round, and so it just opens up. It's a little bit of some checkering here on that little dial. It's not very difficult to get a hold of. The third safety is the magazine disconnect safety. So once we have the magazine out, it's safe. I mean, it locks the firing pin. So this is the triple safety, and it made it really safe to carry. The barrel is 3.15 inches in length. They did make the model 1922, which had a 4.5-inch barrel. But the problem was during the 1968 Gun Control Act, these were no longer able to be imported. They didn't quite meet the criteria of the size. And so they came out with the model 1910/71. And that was a Browning design. It's beautiful, nice bluing on it, and even had target sights. But unfortunately, with the Gun Control Act, even the PPK was limited. We have composite grips, but it does have the Browning logo. It does have a thicker flange almost with the trigger, and that just gives you more surface space. It's still part of the trigger, but it's just flared out. And so it gives you just a little bit of a better purchase on that trigger. And then we have our slide serrations. They're pretty thin, but fairly easy to grab, and for this design, that's just typical. And we have our external extractor. But again, this really points very well, and again, it's very narrow in this area. The sights, they're just a notch here at the back, more gutter type sights, but we do have checkering all the way down the strap, and then we have a small little bead at the front. This honestly was made to shoot with one hand, and that was the doctrine back then, but also up close and personal. This was a personal defense weapon. You'll notice that the barrel has kind of an unusual bushing right here, and this is for takedown, but it has little notches all the way around and then two other notches, and again, we'll take a look at that when we disassemble. But while this came in 380 ACP, and it also came again in 32 ACP, this is the FN version. In fact, I did a full review on this handgun. Honestly, they're the same guns. It's just that FN made the Browning and put the Browning name on it, mainly for importation into the United States. But according to sources, you can actually take the 32 ACP barrel and put it in the 380 model, vice versa, and it'll function the same. It was never marketed for that. It was always just either barrel, but you can switch these, and we'll test that out when we go to the range. The FN grip is definitely a little different. It's a little more of a rubberized finish with the FN, and it's just more smooth. With the Browning, which is typical even for your Browning high powers, it has that kind of a squared off look to it. These all have hot salt bluing, which was traditional during that time. One of the most famous Browning handguns is the Browning High Power, and this is just a beautiful handgun. Of course, Browning, or FN, has discontinued this model the past couple of years. They've offered a brand new redesign of the High Power, and there's a number of companies that have come out with the High Power, but these original High Powers have really started bringing premiums, and the prices are going up. But these are just beautiful guns used by the British forces all through World War II and beyond. But this is also in 9mm. All right, let's check trigger pull. Here we have just a touch of take up right here. It hits a wall. And then a fairly mushy break. Not anything to write home about. Reset right there. Reset's pretty quick. This is not necessarily a target pistol. And when it comes to trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells, 5 pounds, 2.9 ounces. 4 pounds, 12.7 ounces, not bad. Weight on the Browning model 1910, 19.38 ounces. So while it's small and thin, it does have a little bit of heft to it. Now here's an advertisement. I don't have the date on it, but it's probably pretty early on. $44.50 were what these were going for. And that had a fitted case with it. So man, prices have really gone up. But we were making a lot less then. All right, guys, a big thank you to Fiocchi for sponsoring our ammo, all made in the USA, one of the biggest suppliers of ammunition in the country. And we're going to be shooting just some ball 380 ammunition. Again, these are just 6-round magazines, so we're going to check that out. Also, we are going to try the barrel switch with the 32 ACP. I brought some 32 as well, just to see if it's true. All right, guys, the Browning model 1910 in 380 ACP. We're just having a great time out here at the range. A little hefty, but yet it's super thin. Great pocket gun for its time. Very thin.
Serrations, they're not too bad. It kind of throws you off though, that short throw with the slide coming back. You feel like you just don't quite have it back, but it works. We have had no malfunctions whatsoever. 6-round magazine, kind of limited, but and also the hill type magazine catch. It's just kind of, you know, that old school. But that's what this gun's all about, and really that's a lot of the appeal, is this quality that goes into these guns. One thing though that I found is I really have to squeeze. Now I haven't had any issues where I didn't disengage it, but you've got to really mean to squeeze that. And you should have a good solid grip on your handgun. Again, that short throw is kind of funny. .380 ACP, I mean, especially with good factory ammunition, you know, it's going to make a fine self-defense round. Again, you're limited, but just like you are with a standard .38 Special revolver. Just the quality, the sights are about nil. I mean, it's just that over the top. This is made for up close and personal. But again, we started World War I with this handgun. Of course, a lot of other things added to it. And it's just been one of those infamous, but yet there have been more things that have happened with this handgun that have been good to far outweigh the bad. And I'll tell you, it's just one of those beautiful Browning designs. And I'm using both the .32 ACP and the .380 ACP mags. They work fine, either one. That's the way it's meant to be shot, just with one hand. That was the discipline back then. Of course, when it runs out quick and you lose count, you might just move a little. But texturing on the grip's nice. I mean, it's smooth and front strap, back strap, but there's just not that much recoil. But again, for its time, that's what it is. But great little shooting gun, and we are gonna go ahead and test the .32 ACP barrel in this gun to see if they are compatible. All right guys, we have the .32 ACP barrel, we have the .32 ACP recoil spring. That's important because there's less tension on the .32, and we have our loaded up .32 magazine. This ought to be interesting. Seven rounds. That's pretty cool. Of course, the barrels are not necessarily available, but if you could find a .32 barrel or a .380 barrel, if you have one or the other, gives you a caliber conversion, which is absolutely just top notch, and fits right in there just like the other. So, very pleased.
All right guys, for disassembly, we're going to first just remove our magazine, check the chamber to make sure the gun's empty. Now, you are going to need a screwdriver, and I'm going to show you right here with the barrel bushing. While it's knurled, there are two slots on either side, and so you're going to need a screwdriver. I'm sure there was a tool that actually was used, but we don't have that. So in that notch, you just take your screwdriver and you get in that notch and then push down, and it relieves some of the tension. And then you just turn it counterclockwise, and it will fly out when it gets there, just like that. And because there's no tool, this is going to be something you got to be careful about because this will come out pretty quickly. You can see somebody has just taken some pliers and tried to twist that. But you'll notice here on the other side there are these little flanges. And the flanges actually fit down into the slide. I'll take a closer look at that after we break it down. Now we're going to go ahead and pull out our recoil spring. Now this was new during the time. This is now what they use for the PPK, the Makarov, a lot of other designs. But when they first did this, it was a new design, and it took away the need to have that slide come down all the way. And of course, John Browning was known for those kind of timeless designs. Bring your slide back, and we're going to slip the safety lever into that first notch. Now right here, this barrel is actually locked into the slide. So what we're going to do is turn it. And once you turn it it unlocks. And now we can take the slide and we can release it, and it comes right out. Here you'll see these little teeth into the barrel, and they actually lock into the frame. And there is a little cavity here that allows for that to move. And so we can just pull the barrel right out. This gives a very secure fit to the frame, very much like your fixed barrel design. And you can see the grooves that are in the frame. And so all you're doing is unlocking these and just turning it, and then it unlocks. Now here at the back, we have our firing pin or striker. And you can see the spring, and it has a little end cap here, and this will just come out freely. So you want to go ahead probably and take that out so you don't lose it while you're cleaning. But other than that, this is fully field stripped. Now for reassembly, first thing we're going to put in our striker or our firing pin, and there's a little notch that'll fit right into it. There's only one way to do it. And you want to keep that in there and watch for it because it will fall out. Next, we're going to take our barrel. Now you'll notice again there is a slot, a groove inside the slide. So as we put this in, once we get it to that little groove, we're going to turn it. And it will only go one way. There it goes right there. Next we're going to bring our frame up and our slide, and we're going to put them back together. Now once you get it to that second notch again, we're going to go ahead and engage it, and that's going to hold that into place. And then we take our barrel and we just turn it. And you'll notice that the extractor little slot will be right there in the window of the chamber. Now again, here on your barrel bushing, there are these little wings that come out, and they correspond with the slide, the front of the slide. And you need to identify where those are, because this is going to have to fit right in. So go ahead and put your recoil spring over your barrel. And then we're going to release our slide, and I like to go ahead and put it into safe because it holds the slide together. Now we're going to take our barrel bushing, and again we're going to align it because this is now under really good spring tension. So bring this down and just fit it into the slide. And when it depresses into the slide all the way, you know you're in the right spot. And so here we're getting it right there. Now we have it flush with the slide. We're going to take that little slot, and I'm going to put my screwdriver in here, and I'm going to turn it, and we're going to go clockwise. And you want to put some pressure on that bushing right there, and then we just turn it. And once you turn it, it should lock in. And once you try that a couple of times, it gets easier every time, but that first time is a little bit tough. We'll go ahead and put in our magazine, rack the slide, make sure your grip safety is depressed, pull the trigger, and we're back in business. Otis makes some of the best cleaning equipment out there. They make a number of different kits that are dedicated for different rifles, pistols. They also have Shooter's Choice, which makes excellent CLP and bore solvent and different cleaning materials. The ripcord is one of their signatures, and there's a whole system based around it. They are suppliers to the U.S. military. So check out Otis Technologies, highly recommended, and we want to thank Otis for being a sponsor of the channel. When it comes to price, these can run anywhere from $650 up to $1,500 according to the condition or according to just where you find it. Again, this is in the 380, but they did make this in the 32 ACP. And of course, there are FN models out there as well, which honestly are the same exact gun. And with surplus firearms, you know, it's a search, and sometimes you might walk into a pawn shop and find something very reasonable. Now, as far as pros and cons, first off, it's a John Browning design, so there's a lot of pro there. It's an all steel frame, so that gives it some weight, but it makes it really easy to shoot. And it's very small and very thin, great for a pocket pistol during its day. Of course, this is legendary. This is just a piece of history, and considering that World War I was actually started or maybe ignited with the model 1910, it just has a lot of rich history behind it, and obviously there's a lot of other stories behind this firearm. Again, produced up until 1983, which is a testament in itself. It doesn't have all the modern features, light rail, it's not optics ready. You know, it does have a grip safety, which some people don't care for. But this is, again, just a work of art. It's beautiful, and it can be used for a concealed carry piece if you want to go old school. One big plus also is being able to put the 32 ACP barrel into the 380 and vice versa. So it gives you two completely different calibers. If you can find one of the barrels, it makes it really easy. Another con would be just finding magazines, and sometimes the magazines are a little bit more difficult to find. But overall, just a great piece of history. Guys, there's something about the old world craftsmanship that goes behind these type firearms. It gives them a lot of soul. Definitely has a lot of collector value, but they shoot really great. And guys, this could be used for self-defense even today. And with the Browning and FN Model 1910, it is a major piece of history. And again, a big thanks to my good buddy Norm, who had this gun on his table. I love these old firearms. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. We're going to take a look today at the model. Either side. Okay, hold on. Kind of become obscure. And okay, this was also used to, what was his name?